Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to episode 215 of the GeoGearHeads. I'm Daryl W4, back with the Bad Cop and our special guest, Jennifer of Team AJK. We're going to have a great discussion on puzzle caches again today, kind of focusing on from the hider's view. So I know that a bunch of us are puzzle hiders or want to be puzzle hiders, and we've got a whole pile of feedback from our listeners today on that. And, Chris, Limax in the live Q&A already, we're getting live Q&A comments, likes your new dance moves.
Well, thank you. I try to break out a new dance for every show, but, there's 52 weeks in a year, and I've got like 3 dance moves. So you're going to have to see some of the same ones over and over and over again. But, I'll do my best.
Well, the folks that actually wrote in or called in their questions were eligible for a prize. So, Jennifer, would you care to tell us who actually was drawn as the winner?
That winner is ZQX.
Congratulations, and he's already got, or she?
He.
I can remember he. Okay, thank you. Already got their membership to Project-GC. So congratulations, and stay tuned till the end, and you can learn how to get something else very cool. But Jennifer, you actually did something that I thought was really cool for everyone that submitted a question this week.
Everybody that submitted questions this week will be receiving my new geocaching puzzle of the day path tags. So watch for those probably sometime next week with the mail holiday and everything. It'll take a little while, but they'll be on the way very soon.
I totally forgot about that.
Yes. Monday, we don't have work or school or any government.
Oh, speak for
function.
yourself. I have to go to work. It's a usual day for me.
That's true. For the rest of the business world, I apologize.
Well, let's go right into the first question.
Hello, Daryl, Chris, and Jennifer. This is Limax. I hail from the San Francisco Bay Area. I am not a puzzle cache owner as of yet, although I do have some ideas for puzzles in my head. One of the ideas that I have for a puzzle, unfortunately, limits the area to where I could actually hide the cache, where otherwise I feel that it would be blatantly obvious what the mechanic of the puzzle is. I'm really thinking about actually abandoning the idea of actually doing a puzzle like this. And what I'm looking for is that the right approach? I mean, if you really can't place a cache except in some general swaths of area, is it really meant to be a good puzzle cache?
I think I have an idea of the kind of puzzle you're talking about, and there are certain mechanisms that you would use that all the numbers just don't work. There's only certain ways you can do it, and sometimes you're lucky if there's anywhere around you where it'll work at all, and if the location doesn't work, then, like you say, do you have to just give up the idea or what? I do think there are a couple of ways around it, not just for cases where it's private property or the middle of the water or something like that. Maybe it's just kind of a rotten location where you don't really want to send people. Couple of ideas you could do where you make it maybe sort of an intermediate step for your puzzle. You could have that be the first answer, and then maybe you need another answer after that, or maybe you have that be the answer, but the actual cache location is an offset from that location, or you could have them put in the puzzle answer and then just receive the true coordinates in the geochecker, for example. So, I think there's ways around it, but I totally know what you're talking about with, sometimes you're just really, really limited in terms of how it can work. So good luck with it, and maybe if you're creative, you can do a workaround.
Nice. Yeah, it's not always the easiest to find the perfect location for a puzzle cache. Sometimes the location would be too obvious. I agree with them. Well, we have more feedback. This one comes from Mercury Turtle. Isn't one a fast metal and the other is a slow mammal or reptile? Anyway, how do puzzles or how many puzzles or ciphers are too much for one puzzle cache? And obviously the answer is 7.
See, and I was thinking the answer was 1.
I think it really depends on the kind of puzzles you're talking about and on the audience in your area, what they're used to or what they're willing to try. I know there was a thing going for a while out on the West Coast where it was common to put a 45-step puzzle, and there were several of those out there. I've got some, we can list the GC codes there from 2006. They go back at least that far. I found one that was GCXE6G. There was one actually a couple hours away from here that was kind of a spin-off of the 45-stepper. He decided to do 90 steps, so that one was very interesting. It actually had 3 different entry points, so you could sort of work on steps 1 through 30 and steps 30 through 60 and steps 60 through 90 sort of at the same time. In case you got stuck on one, you could go to the other branch. It was nuts, but it was a lot of fun. And the GC code for that one, if anybody wants to try it, is GC3WG14. I think as far as a guideline, if you're going to try to make that kind of a puzzle, I personally like to know how many steps I've got when I'm getting into it. If it's 45 steps and I think it's 10, I'm going to kind of wonder where in the world the end is. So it's nice to let people know how many steps there are going to be. I think if you're doing ciphers in particular, it's not required, but I would certainly appreciate if there's some sort of feedback that you're getting through the puzzle that you're doing it right at each step. Maybe part of a message will decode with the first step, and then another part will decode on the next step. Because that way you at least have some idea that you're on the right track. If I have to do 5 different ciphers, but I have no idea if I'm right at any particular step, I personally am not as likely to keep going with that because it'll just feel too random to me. I think one of the things you have to be careful of is the more steps you have in there, the more places there are that you could make a mistake. So testing it is going to be really important to test each one of those steps and make sure that everybody can get through them. A couple other ones I can mention just for reference if people want to try them. There's one, I've got the GC code is GC2153M. I think that one's called Mother of All Puzzles or something like that. I actually haven't completed that one myself. I worked on it a little bit. I know a lot of people have liked it. There are some Master of Mystery series out there. There's one I've got in the show notes for ciphers in particular that you could try. A couple other ones that are sort of learning experiences and they get harder as you go, that kind of step thing, where the first steps might be easy and the later ones get harder. So, a lot of different approaches to it, and I'd say, might as well go for it, but be sure you test it and make sure that it works before you put it out there.
Okay, Jennifer?
Yes.
I've got to get some examples here. A 45-step, is that a cipher?
No, it's not a cipher. It's something where you're going to actually change the URL for each step. So, for example, if the first step was, say, if 1 equals Mercury, you have to think what 2 would be. And so,
Venus?
Exactly. So you put in Venus, and then it comes up with something that relates to 2, and you have to figure out, well, what would 3 be if that's 2? So that's the kind of thing that I'm familiar with those 45 or the 90-step one. It's the same thing.
So kind of word association.
Yeah, but you'd be amazed at the direction they get. Exactly.
Okay.
Patterns, words, trivia. It could be all over the map. But
Okay.
They're pretty
Well,
fun.
that does sound actually quite fun.
Well, and I like the putting the something in there at each step so that you know that you decrypted it correctly or decoded
Right.
it correctly. Because
Right.
I could see going through and on one step having the wrong method, and then you keep going, and it just gets further mucked up from there.
Right. If you've got the wrong cipher or the wrong keyword or any kind of little thing, you're just toast. And the ones I
Right.
especially like, they not only give you a little bit of the message, but they might give you a little bit of a hint or a little bit of a tease to what the next step is going to be. So those are especially well done.
Meanwhile, Limax says that 1 is mercury, 2 is iron, and 3 is gold.
There you go.
He's always been into heavy metal.
Oh dear.
Hey, this is Shermanator 18. I actually live about 30 miles from Jennifer in Geneva, New York. My question is, when you make a puzzle cache, I sort of have a hard time determining what the difficulty level should be. So what's the best way to determine that?
That's a question that a lot of people have, and I honestly struggle with that myself sometimes. It varies a lot by location, so I think the best advice I would have would be to familiarize yourself with what else is out there in your area and kind of go along the same lines as what other people are doing. There's just sort of there can be like the local custom, that people go by. I've said this before, there are some places where people feel like any kind of a puzzle requires at least a 2-star difficulty, and I'm not sure I really agree with that, but that's one group of people's idea. It also is going to vary depending on the experience level of the puzzlers in your area. Something that if you don't have a whole lot of folks doing the puzzles, you might rate it a little higher, and if you're in an area where there's lots and lots and lots of them, it might be a lower rating. I think I don't see anything wrong with overrating the puzzle possibly a little bit. It gives people a sense of accomplishment when they do get through it. And I think, you can always raise the difficulty if it's not set right. That makes people feel better. You certainly don't want to lower the difficulty because that's going to make people be disappointed if they feel like they got something and then they feel less accomplished if you lower the difficulty. But it's very tricky. I would always recommend asking if you have somebody test it for you, what do they think? Because as the maker, it could be a lot harder than you realize depending on the way that it's constructed. And certainly if there's anything about the hide that is as difficult or more difficult than the puzzle, then you want to incorporate that and possibly tell people in the listing that the difficulty is made up of both the hide and the puzzle. So I think that's my best advice.
Hey guys, it's Dano of King Pugatch, just calling in about question 215. Questions for Team Magic about the puzzle cache hiding. I've had a few puzzle caches and I feel like they're super easy because my fear is I don't want to make a puzzle too hard, but I feel like I'm making them too easy that I just haven't found any happy medium. So my question for you is, how do you decide if it's too easy or too hard? Do you have other people test them out? Do you just have a rule of thumb of it should take X amount of time to solve? But yeah, I'd love to know your ideas on what's the appropriate difficulty of a puzzle cache.
Okay, so several different things in there. First of all, I do think there's a place for all levels of difficulty. I kind of like putting out some easy puzzles, and the thing you have to remember is a puzzle that might be easy to solve, that doesn't mean it's boring, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's that easy to create. There's a disconnect there. Some puzzles that are very easy to solve might be very hard to create, and the opposite is also true. So I think creating a fun, entertaining, easy puzzle is really quite a skill. Anybody could put a Sudoku or something up there, but it's not particularly hard, but it's not necessarily that fun either, So I've done your one where you play the game and you go through, and it's not difficult, but it's fun. So I think there's absolutely a place for those kinds of puzzles. If you want to up your game and try and make something a little harder, having someone that you're working with and tossing ideas back and forth with is a great way to try to gauge the difficulty if it's too hard. And there's so many mechanisms that the puzzle itself could be made a lot easier just by the way that you construct it and the number of breadcrumbs that you leave in there. You can make a fairly complex idea not that hard to solve if you construct it so you've got these breadcrumbs that the people will notice and then work their way through one at a time. So I think there's a skill in doing that. You just have to figure out what the people in your area will tolerate in terms of difficulty, what they're comfortable with, and gradually perhaps move them along. If you get them interested in doing the easy ones, then maybe throw in one that's a little harder, and you can kind of gradually cultivate a puzzle audience out there.
And you could do a series, of 5 different types or what, 9 different types of puzzle caches.
Exactly.
Make them progressively harder.
Right. I've seen that where it starts out literally like 1 star and then 1.5 and 2, and then it builds its way up. And sometimes the people will put clues in the actual caches themselves. So if you go and find the 1 star, you can get a clue for the next one. And there's lots of fun things you can do with series, whether it's built around a particular theme or increasing difficulty like that. I just finished putting out a series that I had a ton of fun with. The caches came out once a week on Sundays, and it was a Game of Thrones themed thing. And so I kind of made it like there's 10 of them, like it's 10 episodes in the season, and each one was sort of related to some kind of a game in some way. And it turned out to be quite successful. People seemed to have a lot of fun with it, and it was a hoot watching for those FTFs every Sunday coming in. So
nice.
Series are a lot of fun to do and build that excitement, I think, for people getting a lot of finds and a lot of chances for FTFs and stuff.
I always think that my puzzle ideas are too simple. Number one, I know the solution. So, that's like, well, obviously that's what it is. It just, but, you have to realize some people are going to look at it and go, yeah, I know what that is. I've seen one like it, or it just, it flows, and other people can look at it for months and not have a clue on where to go. So.
Right.
Well, IMAX in the live Q&A says that we have a series of 2 different video game puzzles around here. The easier series has a hint for the harder series in the final.
Great idea. Great way to do it.
Well, let's move on to the question from this week's winner, which was ZQX. Once I published a mystery cache that contained a rare puzzle type, and most cachers in my area struggled to solve it despite the hint. In cases like this, is it a good idea to publish another cache nearby with a lower difficulty rating that walks people through how to solve this type of puzzle?
I do think that's a creative approach. You could either do it sort of beforehand or afterwards if you realize that they're having trouble getting through it and you want to preserve that original difficulty without expanding on the hints. There's nothing wrong with giving people a chance to learn the required skill, and it also gives them another cache to find. So I am a big fan of that sort of training puzzle approach. Some friends and I put out several different cipher kind of training puzzles where figuring out what the cipher wasn't necessarily that hard, and we gave you a related web page where you could read about pretty much exactly how it worked, and you just had to kind of go through the process and work it out. So it gives you, access to a new skill, and I think if there's sufficient interest in the area, in whatever type of puzzle you're doing, and especially if you want to put out a lot of that type, you can even hold events, that teach some of those skills. There's an event coming up in Oregon this weekend that goes with a series of, I can't remember how many puzzles are in the series, but they're all cipher-based, and he's having an event that you actually get to go, and you're going to get some lessons about cipher solving and split up into groups, and and the inexperienced people will work on some of the easier ones, and some of the more experienced people will work on the more experienced ones, and it sounds like a ton of fun. So I think anything that type of approach where you can teach people something or help them learn something new, why not? And get them a cache in the process.
That event's like 6 hours away from me.
Oh, that's a little far, but
it's right on the edge there. I could do it. It's also Valentine's Day, and if I do it, I may have to sleep in the doghouse. So,
well, the good news for most of our audience is they're not going to find out about it until after it's already over with.
There you go.
Okay, so
maybe they can plan their own.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
They can plan their own event. So.
Meanwhile, in the live Q&A, Shermanator18 says that you have 2 great GeoArts made of puzzles.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The one I was just talking about, the Game of Thrones, it's not very artistic GeoArt. It makes a little sword on the map for that one, and the other one makes a pie symbol, which again wasn't a whole lot of art, but it's fun.
Perfect for March 14th, though.
There you go.
Exactly.
That was part of it.
Which is coming up, so maybe people can get on that and make their own Pi Day puzzle series.
They weren't all actually pie related, but a couple of them were.
If they do the same puzzles over again, does that make it pi r squared? Oh. No. Pi r round. That's how pi r. Okay. Sorry, I got corny jokes. The next communication we have is from Code Junkie. He says, as a puzzle lover, there is something that I feel fits both the seeker and the hider side of the equation. As a cache owner, we want our caches to be found, well, most of us anyway, which requires us to be willing to help others solve the puzzle by being responsive to questions asked. As a solver, I feel it's just as important for us to work with the CO as the initial point of contact. My method is to list the cache, for example, the reference, and what I've tried, assumptions, etc., to give the CO an idea of the path I'm headed down. I'm not expecting them to give me the answer, but to help me or to help educate me on things that I may not be seeing, haven't considered, simple math mistakes, things like that. When doing trivia-type puzzles, I always include a link to the web resource where I got my information, as it helps to clear up any issues with conflicting information.
Mm-hmm. I really agree with pretty much everything that was said there. As an owner who does get a lot of questions about puzzles, I do appreciate when people let me know what they've tried and where they're coming from, and because I don't want to shoot back a hint and them say, well, duh, I knew that, so it helps me sort of know where they're coming from, where they are, and I can get in at the right level. And you do have all levels of people trying things. Sometimes somebody's at the very, very end and they're just, making some kind of a careless mistake, or again, like you say, a conflicting source might have one piece of information a little bit different than what you were anticipating. So whenever you can really explain to the owner, exactly what you've done, and the fact that you really are only looking for a nudge rather than asking them to just spoil it for you, I think most puzzle owners are going to be very receptive to that.
For me, it kind of goes back to, my schooling. I have to show my work. Mm-hmm. I want to say, hey, I've worked at this. I need a nudge. Mm-hmm. The way I'm going isn't working. What have I done wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a good example is with one of my Doctor Who-based caches. I was getting emails from people that they were having issues getting through it, and it turns out all of them were using the same site that had bad episode numbers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, one set of episode numbers like that's wrong, and you couldn't solve the puzzle.
So did you make any changes to your puzzle? Did you include a link to the proper site?
I think I did in the hints.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly how I did that, but yeah, there was a hint there.
I've seen those that they'll put it as a note farther down. If you want, most people, when they're looking at a puzzle, they're going to look at the description. They're not necessarily going to look at the logs.
Right.
So that kind of adds a little insulation there if you don't want a spoiler right away.
Even the related web pages, you'd be surprised how many times people go right by those.
I forget those, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is from IHAM. How do people feel about posting no hints until the puzzle has been FTF'd?
Well, I'm assuming the question means as a cache owner, as a puzzle maker and the cache owner, how you feel about it. That is really a personal preference. I personally hate it when my puzzle sits out there and nobody has solved it or found it, and it is so hard for me to sit and wait and watch and hope that I didn't make a mistake, even though I checked it, and So, I say that I don't want to post hints until the first to find, but boy, it's hard sometimes. And I know people that are very strict about, I'm not posting any hints for 2 weeks, or I'm not posting any hints for, whatever. And that's their prerogative. That's their personal thing. I would have a really hard time doing that because I just hate it when people struggle. So I tend to be pretty quick with the hints. Sometimes I'll even say after a first to solve, if I feel like it's a particularly hard one, that I'll go ahead and post hints. If we're talking about as a puzzler rather than the puzzle maker, I wouldn't ever post hints about anybody else's puzzle. That's a big way to get people very unhappy with you in a hurry. And when my blog was very first starting, within the first day or two, somebody was contacting me just to make sure that I wasn't planning on putting spoilers out there or letting anybody in the comments, have any kind of spoilers. And I hadn't really thought about it that much, but I realized right away that that was the last thing I wanted to do, was be ticking off any of the puzzle makers out there, because I was trying to show them how much I appreciated their work. So that's kind of what I think about the hints.
Well, one of the things I've seen over and over again is puzzle hiders that don't realize what hints they should put in until they start getting the questions about the puzzle. It's like,
Right.
oh, yeah, I should probably put a hint about that because it was obvious to them,
Right.
but it's not obvious to anyone else because they
Right.
didn't leave the breadcrumbs there for that.
Right. Or somebody thought there was a breadcrumb there that wasn't. I did a puzzle recently where the owner had used the word Excel in the description, and so I am just positive that I have to use a spreadsheet, or that there's something sort of mathematical somewhere that could be made easier by using a spreadsheet. And I spent, I don't even want to tell you how long putting it in and try all these different formulas. I was reading about every kind of formula in Excel and thinking, what button can I push and how can I tell it? And finally, I wrote to them, I'm like, man, I have just tried so hard with this spreadsheet thing, and they were kind of like, what? So, yeah. So you never can anticipate how people are going to read what you write or what you don't write. And that's a good time to go in and maybe add in a little clarification or a hint if you are hearing that from a lot of people that they're misinterpreting something.
Excellent points. Now, let's go back to some of the stuff that we talked about previously in the live Q&A. Limax says, one of the problems with the related website link seems to be it's difficult to see. It's one of the last things I notice on a page. And I'll add to that, too, that in most of the apps, you don't see that. It's just not transferred to the apps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those where you're going to have to go onto the website to see those related links, and it's a good tip to the finders, the people trying to solve that puzzle, to check the page out on the website, even if you think you know what it is, because there might be some things there that you don't see. And
correct me if I'm wrong, the background images, it's the same way, right? Some of the apps don't show, yeah.
Yeah, none of the apps will show the HTML formatting that I know of unless you go to the website. And a lot of the apps will have that link to take you to the website.
Mm-hmm.
But in their description, they strip it down to basically, sometimes you get formatted text, but in many cases it's just text. And Shermanator18 says that she's only been able to solve and find a few of the Pi Geo art so far, and it's really eating her way at her.
Keep at it. You'll get it. And you know who to ask if you run into trouble.
Who would that be?
Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, maybe it's Cupid this time of year.
Exactly. the arrow that gives you the sudden burst of intelligence. Isn't that what that Cupid shoots, that arrow? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
I would just, speaking to her specifically, if you've ever written to me for a hint and you didn't get enough, you want more, always come back and ask for more, because I kind of reel them out slowly, just because I don't want to give away too much. So that never be afraid to come back and ask for more.
Hey, Chris and Daryl. This is Jeff, a.k.a. Antaeus, from San Antonio, Texas. Just sending in my response to question 215. Puzzle caches are a lot of fun to solve and to create as well. But being an owner of a puzzle cache can be a little disappointing at times. There are a lot of cachers out there that just don't enjoy doing them. And so you just really don't get a lot of hits. Very disappointing when you put all this effort into it and you get maybe 5 finders. And then, you may go a year or 2 before the next person finds it. Also, those checkers, I know there's several of them, and I believe one of them recently got hacked, or within the last few months. Anyway, those are always appreciated, and I recommend always including them. I've actually heard of some puzzle solvers who won't work on a puzzle unless it has one of those checkers on it.
Yeah, again, a lot of things in here to talk about. The low number of finds is absolutely true, and as a puzzle maker, you have to be prepared for that. I see it. I have one traditional cache here that's part of a, it's not an official geo trail, but it's kind of that sort of thing where you can earn a coin, for doing the 20 caches around the Cayuga Lake here. And that thing has got over 300 finds. And my top puzzle, I was going to look it up here on Project GC if I could, but it's got maybe 50, maybe. But, so, but the thing is, and I think I've said this before, but the logs I get from my traditional, they might say, it's a nice park or whatever, but it's mostly, thanks for the cache, thanks for the cache, thanks for the cache. And the logs for my puzzles, I get so much more, I get, thanks for the puzzle, this was a lot of fun, or I learned something, or, we came here just to do these puzzles, or that kind of thing. And so I feel like even though the number of finds is lower, the enjoyment factor that each one of those finds represents is a whole lot higher than for my traditional. So there's that kind of a trade-off. And I guess you just sort of have to get used to it, and it just goes along with the territory. Some of the particularly fun puzzles and some of the easy puzzles, those will get more finders, and maybe you can, again, kind of lead people along by giving them some easy ones. Once you get a reputation that your puzzles are workable and that they're fair, then more people will at least try them. Going back to what you were asking about the geocheckers, I do appreciate when a geochecker is on there. It's not that I won't ever do it, but boy, especially on a really hard one, if there's not a checker there, it's not going to be at the top of my list, let's just say. I'd much rather have a checker there just to know for sure. If you really don't need a checker, if the answer is going to be totally obvious, then you could say that. You could say, if you have any doubt about whether you got the solution or not, then, you're wrong. So that kind of a statement, if you really, really don't want to put a geochecker on there, you could say something to that effect that, if you have the answer, it's going to be obvious and a geochecker isn't needed. It was geocheck.org that was hacked. That was in about, I think, January of 2015. And the solutions were taken, and passwords for that site were taken, and they recommended everybody go, change their passwords and stuff. We actually did a whole GeoGearHeads. I happen to have the number. It was 150. The Puzzles 2 episode, we talked a whole lot about the different checkers and the different features that are available and some of the sort of benefits and drawbacks of using the different ones. So you can certainly check that out if you want to learn about some new checkers or experiment with trying a new checker.
That was about 65 weeks ago.
Wow.
Fun how we can do math.
Yeah.
Time flies.
That means we're old.
Hello, this is Adam Dimshar, or Carrie Killer, calling in reference to question 215. I neglected to mention on the last question, but I come from South Georgia, I guess. I spend my weekends in Statesboro and my weekdays in Augusta, so that's south to middle Georgia. Anyhow, I own a few puzzle caches, and I don't mind giving out hints at all. I want people to find my cache, but I don't want them to just get the coords from a friend. So if they're actually working on it, I don't mind giving them hints and helping them work through it and figure out the puzzle, because in the end I hid it for someone to actually find it. As far as checking services, I used to always use GeoCheck.com or GeoChecker, and recently I've switched to Certitude simply because I like to be able to see the logged in names of who has actually completed the puzzle and the ranking order of when they completed it. Just that's me. I like the extra data, and that feature alone has had me pretty much exclusively switch to Certitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are certainly a lot of us that really, really enjoy Certitude. We enjoy the little competitive aspect of getting our names in the log in the order that we solve them. Bear in mind that not everybody will put their name in. You're going to have anonymous solvers as well, and if anybody's worried, the wrong guesses are always anonymous, so it's not going to say who's getting the wrong answers. So it's a great site built, as all of them are, by other cachers, you know, and those of us that really enjoy puzzles get the updates every day in the email of all the new puzzles that are out there that use them, and so be aware of that if you put a puzzle on Certitude, it's likely a lot of folks are going to be looking at it from outside your local area, and if it catches their eye for whatever reason, you may get solvers from out of your area as well.
Hi, GeoGearHeads. Billy Robson from Alberta, Canada. My suggestion as a cache owner is to always make sure that you beta test your puzzles before releasing them into the wild. I have several that I've released and I thought would be really easy, and I've found people had trouble with them. So beta test, and then it's a lot smoother. On giving clues, I'm all in favor as long as a person can show me the work they have done. I'll give them as many clues as they like.
Yep, I agree with everything he's saying there.
There you go back to showing your work.
Yep.
Well, I have to wonder if he's actually from Alberta, Canada, because it sounded like he had like a nice tropical bird paradise going over there. Shermanator18 said that she's messaged you for help multiple times, but hasn't been able to get down to Ithaca as much as she'd like to find that Pi series.
Well, come on down whenever you're ready. It's not that far.
Well, that's always a problem, is finding the time to get out and do the caching. You know, solving the puzzles can be a little easier because you can do that like on the downtime when you're at the doctor's office or whatever. So that's always a good thing to do when you're looking for something to do, and certainly more productive than like the crosswords in the newspaper.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. Oh, sorry. Definitely.
One thing about my hides is there's only about 2 that require very much hiking or even walking. So if you ever want to come down, you can do a whole bunch in one day. So that'll help you out.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the actual questions, but we did get a couple more voicemails with some tips, I'll guess we call them.
Hi, this is Randy of JR and Juju, Bravo, New Mexico. For question 215, we'd really like to highly recommend Cully Long's book on how to puzzle cache. You can use this if you're learning to place a cache, if you're trying to solve a mystery cache, or just as a reference all around. We highly recommend it.
Well, you know, if you've listened to me before, that I totally agree with that. I collaborated a little bit with Cully in the end stages of that book before it came out, and I think it's an excellent resource for both new puzzlers and practice puzzlers. There's something in there for everybody. One of the things that people like about that book is that he has practice puzzles in there that you can, test your skills, referring back to the things in the particular chapters. And he has actually developed a new feature. It's a website that's called Puzzle Cache Practice. And each week he'll be featuring a sample puzzle just like the ones that are in the book, except these are also going to have hints come along within a day or two, and then the answers will come along within a day or two after that. So I think people are having some fun trying those out. Again, they don't lead to an actual cache, but they will lead you to some sort of interesting feature that you could see either on Google Maps or on Street View. And I've actually created a couple of them for him, and we've been having a lot of fun putting those together. And somebody said to me, why in the world are you making these puzzles without caches? And I said, come on, this is the best. It's just all about the puzzle, and I don't have to find a container or figure out where to put it or get permission or anything. It's pure puzzling. So if you are interested in finding more puzzling, his puzzle cache practice is the thing to look for. You can get to it through his Facebook page for the book as well. There's actually another geocaching related puzzle adventure out there by E. Peter So2, who a lot of you will be aware of his very popular Puzzle Solving 101 series down in the Fort Lauderdale area. And I understand you actually had a caller about that one as well.
Hey, GeoGearHeads, this is Antaeus. I came across something that I think you guys would like to hear about for episode 215. It's called Geodyssey, a puzzle hunt by E. Peter SO2. It's a geocache puzzle hunt contest. There's a contest for people local to the Broward County, Florida area, and then there's also a remote challenge. And it looks like you can, when you complete the challenges, you can get a travel bug code, and you can even win prizes. So just wanted to let you guys know about it. Check it out. It's geodyssey.puzzlehead.org.
Mm-hmm. That is a ton of fun. He doesn't actually have caches for these. The local finders will be finding tags associated with different benchmarks that you discover as you go through the puzzle series. I'm about ready to get on a plane and go down there and do that version, I have to tell you. I had so much fun doing the remote version. And I managed to log in and get the travel bug thing. And there's even a hidden puzzle in there that you can find, and find the travel bug code for that one as well. And it's an awful lot of fun. They're extremely well constructed, and different than some of your usual geocaching puzzles, but there is that geocache angle because of the benchmarks that are included, and you're using the geocaching website to look up the benchmarks and stuff. So, if anybody's thought about trying it, it's an awful lot of fun. If you've got somebody to team up with and work, I know of several folks that have worked on it in groups, and they've kind of fed off of each other as they work through the thing. It takes a while, believe me. It's not something you can do, in an hour or two, but it's a lot of fun. The contest goes through the end of March, so there's still plenty of time if you want to get in there. Excuse me, Daryl. If you want to get in there and be eligible for the prizes, it goes through the end of March.
And Shermanator18 says that she heard about these from Podcacher and has been working on them all week.
Yeah, I believe it. They're a ton of fun.
Wet Coaster also says in the live Q&A, The checkers are great for those puzzles where you're not in that area. I would like to know if I've solved it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I will often send an owner an email and just to confirm my coordinates, and they'll be saying, oh, when are you coming? And I'll say, well, probably won't be coming, but I just really wanted to know if I figured it out right. So that's absolutely always an alternative. Just if you're not positive, you can write the CO and see if they'll confirm them for you.
And then our last comment from the live Q&A comes from Limax, who says he's accidentally scrapped a caching day when he got obsessed with solving a couple of puzzles.
I can relate.
Yep.
I think we've all gotten obsessed with that puzzle, and we wish we had never tried it.
I was up until 4 o'clock in the morning working on that GeoOdyssey. I hadn't done that in years, but it was fun.
Sometimes once your brain gets going, it's hard to shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you once again, Jennifer, for joining us and helping to spread some wisdom on puzzle caches.
Yes,
come see me on Geocaching Puzzle of the Day.
And, of course, we'll link to that in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out.
Certainly. Now, we have a real treat for the next drawing. Antaeus is going to be creating a 3D printed cache to send to one of our lucky contributors to episode 219. So think about what you'd like to ask our 3D printed geocache experts and send an email titled question 219 to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com by 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on March 8th. In the body of that message, include your geocaching screen name and the question you'd like posed to Antaeus and Taz427. Do that, and you'll get one entry into the drawing. But if you'd like 2 entries, you could double your fun. Send us a question in your own voice. The best thing to do is record an audio file from the smartphone or computer, then email that to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com. The easier way yet is to call the voicemail line at 206-350-3647 and leave us a message. Make sure to tell us your geocaching.com screen name in that message, though, so we know who you are and you can get that entry. You have until March 8th to get us those questions. That's plenty of time to think about what you'd like to know about 3D printed geocaches for episode 219.
And we have several episodes coming before that, all of which are pretty exciting. Next week, we're going to be talking about cache series. That's like the Geo Tours or the series of caches, not like, But that's
right
going to be
after another?
Right. not so much like the power trails, but we'll probably talk about that kind of stuff a little bit too. But that's going to be with Kid Vegas and Lookout Lisa, so excited about that one. Then the following week, for episode 217, we're going to be talking about boating again. That's again with Aaron of coinsandpins.com. March 3rd for our first GeoGearHeads of March, and episode 218, we're going to have a couple of guests that I'm not going to share, although I think we spoiled it last week. And you know what? This is randomized.
Might have been me.
Yeah, it might have been. But this is episode randomized 43, rather. And I was in there posting some more stuff. Man, that is one packed show already. You'll want to make sure that you join us for that because there's going to be a live prize again.
Daryl,
then, of course, yes.
I know last week I said it, and then I meant to go back and correct myself, and I just kept going. I called it XL3 last week instead of 43. Oops, sorry, guys. I do know how to read Roman numerals, but sometimes I slip.
Yeah, well, we were having a lot of fun with the Roman numerals last week, too. Anyways, on the March 10th, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be that 3D printed caches show, and I know a lot of us are looking forward to that because that's going to be so much fun, and we're also excited about the promise of 3D printed caches.
We certainly are. Well, until next week, check out the Cache Maniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so send us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cashomaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cashomaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show's copyright 2016 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.